Yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled the Trump administration can immediately begin enforcing a ban on transgender service members in the military. So under this new ban, the Pentagon will not allow transgender Americans to join any branch of the military. Our Simone D'Alba spoke with an expert about the impact of the justice's ruling.
We're joined by Dr. Karen Holt, political science professor at Virginia Tech. Good to be with you. Thank you for joining us today.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Now, the Supreme Court has ruled that the Trump administration can immediately begin enforcing a ban on transgender service members in the military. I'm curious what you make of this ruling.
A couple of things. One is it came off the emergency docket, so we don't exactly know the reasoning behind the court decision. It also a decision that, although it allows, as you say, the military and the administration to keep on pursuing its policy for now, it's pending the final decision going on in lower courts that may then well come back for full hearing by the U.S. Supreme Court. So on the one hand, it's a decision that's discouraging to many advocates for LGBT causes and others. At the same time, it's not a final decision, but it's a way along the road to a decision.
Well, you touched on something I think is very important here because the court didn't explain its reasoning, which is common in emergency rulings. We've seen that before. But do you anticipate a lot of legal wrangling back and forth with this ruling, especially in the lower courts, which you had just kind of touched on a little bit?
There have been at least two lower court decisions that both have found that there are various violations in the administration's policies. The decision that they're still waiting for the next step on is an appeal in the western part of the United States, an appeal of a Washington state decision, and that goes before the Ninth Circuit. So it's really the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals court that will hear the administration's appeal of the lower court decision, which basically said that the transgender plaintiffs that were bringing suit were unconstitutionally violated against. Their 14th Amendment protection for equal protection was violated. So that's what will be argued in the lower courts. There'll be a lot of argument that takes place at that level. It will be incumbent, I think, on the administration to argue two things. One is that there needs to be deference to the administration in this kind of a case, for the military to decide what it needs to do in order for its policy to go forward. It also will be a fairly high constitutional barrier, it seems to me, because this has been allowed by other courts, and the presidency, at least since 2016, went for a while in the first Trump administration, but not an absolute ban. Now it's back to the courts.
Now, we've seen this before, right? So the new policy mimics a previous ban established during President Trump's first term. The Supreme Court allowed the policy to remain in place until 2019, but then it was reversed when President Biden took office. We are at the very beginning here of a Trump term. I know in terms of where all of this might go, I mean, anything you would tell our viewers?
Well, I think a couple of things that's important to keep in mind is that this is a different Trump administration in many ways, a little bit more prepared to take on these kinds of arguments and cases. But it also is an administration that apparently feels quite freed by the previous decision of the U.S. Supreme Court in Trump versus United States, in which the court said, of course, that the president has much more control or power over the executive branch. And I think that will be among the lines of argument that the administration will make, that it was in the power of the unitary executive, and certainly with deference to the military decisions within the executive to pursue this decision. Now, what the courts are going to want to see a little bit more of, I think, is evidence that supports the claims that this is a problem for military unit cohesion, and there are real concerns in terms of national security readiness. At least as lower courts have said, there's no solid evidence for any of those claims, but those are the issues the courts will have to sort out.
Okay, anything else that you want people to understand about this new transgender ban and kind of its larger impact? It's been a big national topic of conversation today.
Well, it certainly has been, and its impact, of course, is consistent with the many things that the Biden, or rather the Trump administration, has been trying to do on a whole host of transgender issues. This is focusing now in the military. It really raises questions for military readiness, which we've had some concerns about going forward, and recruitment and so forth. It also raises a great deal of concerns in terms of hiring practices and retention practices for folks in the military. And finally, as the lead plaintiff has claimed, many thousands of dollars have been spent training these highly qualified people to serve as various kinds of parts of the military. And that's raising a question as well in terms of military readiness and expenditures of money. So those things are a concern from a policy capacity effectiveness point of view, other people, of course, feel very strongly on a range of grounds about how one should deal or understand what transgender people should be doing or not doing in various aspects of public affairs.
Dr. Karen Holt, political science professor at Virginia Tech, thank you for your time and for your expertise tonight. We appreciate it.
Good talking with you.